Oh, I have to click a second. Okay, John, if you want to take it away on Grape 2.
Okay, a lot has happened. I got the 36 RF deck boards back from the manufacturer. I ran a set of 20 measurements per board, and all 36 checked out the way I thought they should. And the next step is to apply the RF excitation, make sure the radio works. And if those all pass, then the RF decks are basically done. We did discover the last couple of days there is a RF folding problem due to my negligence of where I place the center frequency, and I'm going to have to move the center frequency of observation from 500 hertz probably up to about 1500. We were getting some aliasing due to the fact that the 600 hertz tones were mapping to -100, which then folds back is phase inverted as 100 and causes problems, and you get all kinds of aliasing and nasty things going on. So that's in progress. All of the parts for the logic boards and the boards themselves have been delivered to the manufacturer last Thursday. Salisa got the PO cut, and they confirmed it yesterday that they were able to apply it, and they started the build. And those boards should be done in 2 weeks or on the 24th. And then I'll have to start testing all of those. Let's see, what else has I been doing? Oh, I put together a mechanical mock-up of the case and the board set, and I got the connectors last night to finish that, and I'm going to get a hold of somebody at the University of Scranton that is going to make a 3D printed front panel for the front of the box. And I'm also going to have them make a mounting bracket that slides onto the top of the box to hold the Leo Bodnar GPSDO and the Raspberry Pi. And that whole assembly then with the cabling will set on top of the disk drive case. And that should be it. If we have time, we'll make a back panel. If not, the front panel will hold the board set in the case, so I'm not going to be too worried about it. There's a lot of cables coming out of the back. And if my plans pan out, I'm going to be able to run the hard drive 12-volt supply from the wall wart that is running the entire Grape 2, so you will just have one wall wart running the entire radio. That has yet to be proven because I have to take some current profile measurements of things powering up and what they look like to make sure I'm not exceeding I believe it's a 3-amp supply. Let's see. Other than that, been working fastidiously on software, or I'm sorry, firmware. Bill and Kung will speak on that in a moment. I am starting the creation of the new SD card distribution of the newer OS of Bullseye. I tried to run Bookworm, and I had a couple of 3 major failures. It took me, well, it was about 14 hours worth of work. And after my 4th try, I got the system to boot, but I kept having problems with the distro would just simply lock up. Keyboard would lock up, the screen would lock up. It was completely dead. The only way to get out of it was to unplug it. I tried 3 different SD cards and 3 different Grape, I'm sorry, 3 different Raspberry Pis, so it wasn't the hardware. So we're backing off and we're going to stick with the Bullseye distribution, and that's what I'm in the process of making a master copy of now. Last night I got distro installed. I got the distro to the point where we can use it in terms of modifying everything on the desktop and install options and turning on all the ports and everything. I did get the tool chain to install correctly. It did compile the latest version correctly, but we had a problem with it wasn't talking to the right serial port between the Pico and the Raspberry Pi. So I think that's either just a maybe the way the OS changed in terms of how it refers to the TTY serial ports or something, but I have to talk to Bill about that. It was showing up, but it was not showing up as the same as it was before. What am I hearing? Okay. Other than that, I think that's about it for me. I'm going to hand it off to Bill right now.
Cool.
Okay. I'm unmuted. Okay. Where did my? Okay. I added the Z command to adjust the 0 points on the sample data. That was a couple of weeks ago, so that now we adjust the sample data so that when it reports 0, it is 0. Um, we're now running the data reader thread on an isolated core for priority scheduling. And this has improved the CPU usage. We're now using about average of 12% CPU on core 3. And we disabled 2 unused GPIO threads. So the data controller is running a bit more efficiently, and it isn't preempted as often by the kernel scheduler. Hopefully to decrease the number, the contention, and cause fewer buffer overflows. I fixed one buffer overflow bug due to invalid timestamp. I did that last night, so hopefully, John, you can run another long test once you get your platform running again. I did some preliminary experiments with GPS daemon and the Crony tool that is the replacement for NTP, which is the time sync protocol. I did not get them working yet on the Raspbian platform. The issue is we need to prove that GPS daemon works with our PyGPIO library, and that they play well together. So we just haven't proven that yet. So that's what we're trying to do next. And I been working with Dave Whitten a little bit on the magnetometer integration. And my next job is to, well, we agreed on the design for the handshake between the magnetometer and the data controller. And so Dave and I will be working on that hopefully in the next week or so. And that's about it. I sort of put out a preliminary idea for a project plan with John and Kung, and we're going to be iterating on that to try to figure out some things like process control, design of what launches the data controller, the status monitor, and the magnetometer reader, how they get started and stopped, probably through a Python script. And then we need to talk about what data gets uploaded and when. But those are topics for the general group. So that's it, and hand it back to John or Kung, whoever's next.
Yeah, Kong, if you want to talk, I've got a screaming UPS in the background here. It just decided to go up belly up. So if you hear something whistling in the background, it's my UPS. So I'm going to try and stay muted.
Don't hear a thing.
I don't know if Kong is actually on today.
I don't see him.
I'm not seeing him. He
Probably
has
still.
been, yeah, he's been actively working on, let's see, he's got the status monitor going, and now he's working with David on the frequency analysis program or the frequency analysis module. Maybe David, would you like to say a few words about that?
Well, I spent some time yesterday and um, found some bugs in my code. He spotted them, made some corrections. I think it's ready for next tests, but both frequency and amplitude evaluation of a 1 second data set, if they don't work perfectly, they're pretty close now.
Yeah, from what I saw, the graph that was sent out, I think last night, the with the RF test signal, it looked like it was pretty much dead nuts on. And he was complaining that 10 megahertz was not getting anything, which is actually correct because there's no second harmonic of the 5 megahertz on a square wave. So it looked good. And with that, I think, well, I'll probably think of something, but back to net.
Okay, any questions on Grape 2 progress, Grape 2 stuff?
I do have one thing that I haven't pushed with Salisa yet, is I have not heard anything back from Western Digital about the 35 4 terabyte drives we've ordered. I know the PO got put in, but they've made no indication when shipment is going to happen. So we're still short. That's probably the last piece I'm short of, other than the front panels, to make a complete system. And for those that are wondering, in a rough schedules that we're just sort of throwing against the wall now, roughly we want to try and be done with coding by the end of January. We want to have all the units hopefully built by the end of February for shipping beginning of March. That's roughly what we're looking at. I wish it was sooner, but there was that frequency evaluation thing yesterday we came across yesterday. I may have to go back and modify the RF deck boards and change out 6 capacitors on each board. So I've got about 250 caps I have to change. So that's another little tidbit of work for me to do in my free time. Back to net.
Okay. Any other general questions, comments, or concerns about Grape 2? Okay, let's move on. This is same from other stuff. Let's talk about amplitude drop-off issues. So for everyone before the break, here are the plots we've been holding on to. And we had a little bit of testing done before break and everything. Gary, did you have an update?
Okay, could I share my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Share screen. Share screen. Lots. This is, I have some observations on reception of the FLDigi data, and this is 5 megahertz. And what I do is I scan all the nodes and see if anybody has uploaded any data. For the 5 megahertz, there's only 2 stations that are doing that. And this is 10 megahertz, some of the stations, and we see something happening here. And then this is the rest of the 10 megahertz stations. And then I isolated just the guys in the New England Grape group, just to illustrate this very sharp cutoff here. and the fact that we all agree on that. And I've filtered this slightly differently from the other guys. But this drop-off was between 5 and 7 a.m. Greenwich time. And if we look at these plots are from KC2G, not that one, KC2G's real-time MUF. And it's updated every 15 minutes, trying to get all this out of the way. This is my FL Digi power here. And this was at midnight on the 10th. And I'm taking this every 15 minutes. And let me just run through a day here, and you can see the MUF lines moving. This is 14 megahertz here. This is 10. And you can see, if you watch the 10 megahertz bubble here and my signal strength along about there, which is about 515, it drops way down. And it stays way down as this 10 megahertz bubble gets huge. And it doesn't come up until about 7. And if we then go look at the, where am I? Then go look at the other plot, which was not that. This one? Nope. Between 5 and 7 on, stop it. You know, I hate computers. Between 5 and 7, between 5 and 7, that's when the dropout was. So this is the MUF moving, I believe. And it's not, and we see this every time there's a dropout. The MUF changes over the path between me and Colorado, or between anybody in Colorado. This was at midnight. Let me move ahead again. 132, 215, 3. This is huge. This is 14. Huge ISO. It's like an ISO bar or an isotherm, but it's an ISOMUF. I asked Phil Erickson what would you call those, and he wasn't really sure. And ISO megahertz, no, we like ISOMUF. But as it expands between Colorado, which is right there, that number 10, and me over here in Massachusetts, the midpoint being about here, that's when we see the quote dropout. So there's no mystery to it, and it's not WWV turning off, and it's not anything to do with the hardware. I believe it's the change in the propagation due to the MUF. Now, I have a question. How do I get rid of this? My question is broken. I can't get out of here. How do I get out of here? There we go. Here, pull this down, put that up, get rid of that. The 10th is this one. My question is, how come the MUF changes like this? What are these? What's the mechanism behind MUF changing? And these, it probably has a lot to do with sunlight. Notice this business. But I'm just
recombination, George.
Yeah, I'm kind of a non-academic.
The electrons and the protons get back together.
Yeah, I guess so. And this is kind of an interesting way to look at it, but it's they swarm all over. Whoops, looks like I was doing something else on the machine there.
Looks like you discovered when the party is over.
Yeah. So
Yeah, well,
that's
to the short answer is ultraviolet ionizes the ionosphere, and when it goes away, it recombines and
yeah.
changes. And um,
But
the MUF is probably being calculated from GPS data, total
Um,
electron
I'm
content.
not sure how it's done. KC2G.com is where I got this. And I have every 15 minutes since January 1st, if anybody cares.
well,
Those
But
circles are,
I can,
the circles are our ionosons. So some of
yeah,
that data is pretty good.
well, I took ionoson data from both the one in my backyard and the one in Colorado.
the one in the backyard being Millstone Hill,
Well, well, it's I forget what it's called, but
University
it's
of Louisville,
Millstone Hill.
Millstone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
surprised Millstone's not on this map.
Yeah, not today. It's not. Normally it
so
is. Normally
the
it's right
and
there.
essentially um, plotting the or looking at the 3,000 kilometer MUF from both of those sites. It agrees exactly with what George is showing here. I'll also add a couple of other observations. WWV in Anchorage, Alaska on 10 megacycles is non-existent. I couldn't find a whiff of it. I really questioned whether the receiver was working.
Well, you had a lot of aurora as well.
Well, no, we didn't. That was well, we had some aurora, but it was a little disappointing. But of course, you always have high hopes that you're going to see the sky lit up.
Well, it
But
was
that's another topic. But the only frequency I could hear WWV on was 5 megacycles, and it was pretty darn weak in the evening. So, John, you're going to get a request for a node number here soon. But
Bob, when
okay,
was that?
when was that?
last
Yeah,
week.
It was Sunday night.
yeah, because we have had some flares lately,
Yeah.
but you say it was
Well,
that night.
we did, and here in Indiana, I'm in Valparaiso, which is northwest Indiana, and WWV was gone Tuesday night, and it came back last night, but it fades out about midnight
On
local time
Is this 10 megahertz?
on 10 megahertz. 5 megahertz was screaming in here on both WWV and WWVH was the voice announcement was quite readable
Yeah,
most of the time.
I've noticed nights lately where even 10 megahertz um, disappears.
Yeah. If the MUF goes away, I expect the
I,
signal to go.
yeah, I think it's called winter.
Yeah,
Well, so on 15 megahertz, it's all gone away. And if we look
yeah.
at the MUF um, lines or ISO MUF lines, they will not allow 15 megahertz.
Yesterday morning we had 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25 all here in Indiana.
Good.
Good signals on the high bands. Anyway, I think George and some of my work I think pretty strongly indicate that we're just seeing MUF dropouts, and that maybe it's a fact that they're more general in the area they cover than people might have expected. In fact, I was surprised at how general the dropout was. I wasn't surprised to see it, but it's HF.
Yeah, I did some pretty extensive testing on the digital RF platform that I have with the 10 megahertz signal going in. And I ran it from really low to maximum to 3 times the input level, and it did not drop out or do anything
Yeah.
stupid.
That,
I mean, I got splatter as you would expect, but the hardware seems to be working like we expect it to.
Yes.
John, I ran it 3 times here, and I never saw a dropout at all, but it certainly overloads. And
Yeah.
of course, it goes down to the noise floor, but I never saw the response plummet like it does at all.
Yeah, I think we're seeing something that's real, and it's
Yes.
not an artifact of some hardware issue.
It is. I've been watching this every day since before Christmas. And some days there's no dropout, but some days there's 1 or 2 on 10, and they always coincide with an MUF dipping down into the continental US.
Good work on that, George. That's good to know. That's a lot of work.
Well, that's
very well done, George.
I got to point out that Bob Reif suggested this W1XP suggested the MUF a couple of months ago, and before I decided to try to document it. So it's something that ham radio guys are used to. All of a sudden the band goes dead. Well, yeah.
I figured out I've been working with the ionosphere since 1973. And everything I pretty well learned on my own, but so I'm glad to help.
Thank you for the time, and back to Nat.
It's very well done, George. Good analysis. Thank you for that.
Namaste.
Good, George.
Out of curiosity, did that include like non-grape hardware grapes as well?
No, that was all just my my Grape 1.11 FL Digi.
Okay.
I think the MUF graphs were from a website.
Yes, they were.
But the data was all from our stuff.
Right.
Because I'm doing 5, 10, and 15 at home all the time now.
The MUFs were from prop.kc2g.com. It's updated every 15 minutes. So I wrote a little script that just takes a screenshot every 15 minutes. Well, not right on the 15, a couple minutes later, and just puts it onto a huge thumb drive, a couple gigabytes. So I got a collection of these little snapshots going back to January 1st. I was wondering maybe they should put them somewhere where others can get to them, but I haven't done that.
You could probably, not all of them, but you could probably put a couple in the minutes as well. Speaking of the minutes, let's get back there. Okay. And I keep meaning to check on seedless grapes as well. Okay. I don't think, is Gary on today?
Yep, I'm here.
Do you have any updates about the website? It's okay if you don't. I just wanted to check in because I usually your stuff gets pushed to the bottom of the stack.
No worries. Everything's pretty much status quo unless somebody brings something to my attention that needs to be fixed. I've not touched the grape stuff in a while. I think Bill gave me a new document a few weeks ago, but other than that, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Okay. Am I going to jinx it if I say we're making shockingly good time?
Yes, you are. You will. Oh, I also forgot to add that Gary assembled 35 Raspberry Pis in the cases and the cables on Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't know. It was sometime this week. Seems like it was a year ago. But he's got those all ready to go. So we're in good shape on that. So hats off to Gary for helping on that. It was a big help for me.
Cool.
Let's see. Does anyone have any Grape 1 updates or issues that they'd like to talk about? Or I didn't ask if Bill was here.
I have one question. This is Dave in Colorado.
Yep.
This is a question for John. And John, I know we've talked about this before, but I've got the original Grape Node 16, which was your original build of the grapes that you sent me. And I would like to take that Leo Bodner that's on there and retask it. So I wanted to combine the Grape Node 16 FL Digi with the DRF Leo Bodner, radio. And you said that I could just split the audio, and that was all I really needed to do, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
so and that's
so
assuming
the
that
output from the card, or the little grape itself that goes to the audio input of the USB sound card.
Yep.
That's where you just split those two and put it into two sound cards in parallel.
Yep.
And the fact that the Leo Bodner talks to the Leo Bodner does talk to the Raspberry Pi, but it only has to do that when you configure it, correct?
It gets its power from the Raspberry Pi.
Right.
Yeah, but this is the Leo Bodner I'm going to take out of the line. In other words, I'm going to take. I have two Leo Bodners sitting there. I want to take one off. I'm going to take it off the Node 16, and I'm going to use the radio that is driving the DRF and drive the FL Digi Raspberry Pi with it. And I just want to make sure that the configuration that I've got on the FL Digi Raspberry Pi, it does not rely on any feedback from the Leo Bodner, does it?
No. No, it doesn't.
Why? So you're taking Node 16 down then?
No, excuse me.
I guess I'm not understanding what you're.
No, you're not understanding. Node 16 is going to be still up and collecting data, but I'm not going to use that Leo Bodner and that FL and that grape. I'm going to I have two grapes sitting there side by side doing the same thing. And I'd like to just take the output of one grape and put it into both of the Raspberry Pis.
Yes, that's very doable. So, and the
right.
Leo Bodner, my Leo Bodner is not connected to a Pi. I have it connected to a power supply. Once it's been provisioned with its settings, it'll keep them. And
you save them, yeah.
It saves them.
So there's no talking back and forth between the Leo Bodner and the FL Digi.
No, once you configure it just sits there and hums at the frequency.
So if we were going to change the frequency, I would have on both radios, I would have to go through a reconfiguration and put a Leo Bodner on the FL Digi version just by itself to get the frequency change. Then I could recombine them again, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
You can also run both of the grapes off one Leo Bodnar and do it that way too.
I've done that with a power splitter.
So
you don't really want the power splitter because it drops the voltage level to the drive to the mixer.
I don't
just take them straight out because the loading is not 50 ohms.
Well, so what is preferred? Having two radios or having just one radio and split the audio?
One radio, split the audio.
I think the second one would probably be preferred because that way you're getting the exact same audio stream.
Right.
Okay, so then I'll have an extra grape then.
Right.
You don't have impedance and power problems that way.
Right. That's
even driving the antenna. I mean, the Leo Bodnar is not driving into 50 ohms on the grapes, so you can actually parallel two grapes on a short cables, 6-inch cables, and it'll work just fine. There's no loading problem there.
I didn't know if there's any interference you get from the
but you're theoretically, you're theoretically getting the same output out of both grapes, so you might as well just split the audio.
Yeah. Okay. And then the sound cards that we had originally, and then the sound card that's on the Raspberry Pi for the DRF
are the same.
I don't know. We'll see different signal strengths and such, when I split the audio. So I don't.
No, it won't. You're not loading it enough to cause
audio is high impedance. You shouldn't lose.
Okay, I was going to say I'm not going to have any impedance matching issues, would I?
No.
Okay.
I put up a 600 ohm on the output, a resistor on the output anyway. And
The
then
output of what?
just split just run two twisted pair wires to the sound cards. And
Well, I was just going to take the output and put
Well,
it into a physical
yeah, you
splitter.
shouldn't have to put 600 ohms on it, and the
Yeah, you don't
distortion
want
might
to
go up if you
put
do.
the 600 ohms on there. That's unnecessarily loading the signal.
No, I'll just split it and see
well,
what we
just
get.
split.
it doesn't load that op amp.
Can I share my screen? Because I've got a diagram. Let's have a picture.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll help.
Oh,
Let me do that.
is this the one you did about a year ago, Gary?
Yep. Is that visible to everybody?
Yes.
Yep.
Is this the right?
Yep.
Is this
That's
what we're
exactly
talking
what you
right
want.
here?
Yep.
That's what I want to do, just right there. Yep. What you just
The
circled.
Y
So,
cable is just two parallel, output cables in parallel. No resistors, nothing. That's the way you want it.
those USB audio adapters that are listed there, that was what I was concerned about. If there's any issue between having two different ones, or
No, they
it's
should
just
be fine.
No, they're high
okay.
impedance, no problem.
Well, they're
All
about
right.
3K ohms are actually about 2K ohms because they have a bias source for a electret microphone, which will be driving against each other. But since they're the same voltage and their capacity coupled, it's not a problem.
One of the issues I was a little worried about was having two Leo Bodners sitting next to each other, both generating the same frequency. And are they interfering with each other at all? Is there any kind of a modulation you get between the two? Because they're
They
right
better
next to
be
each
in phase.
Well,
If they're the same frequency.
Well, they're on a PLL, so they're not going to be identical, but they're going to be within millihertz of each other. But yes,
I didn't know that
theoretically
millihertz
be an
difference.
interference, but no, I wouldn't worry
Yeah,
about
so
it.
I think actually taking out one of the Leo Bodners is probably better. I don't know.
No, what we have on the screen here is what you want to do.
All right. Thanks, Gary.
You're welcome.
Last week we got together informally and we were all talking. George and Bob were there, and Rob Robinette was there, and apparently Glenn Elmore's Kiwi that he's gone up on the side of the mountain that can see WWV. It's about 15 kilometers away, but line of sight. He is going to take that offline. We're not going to have that Kiwi there anymore. And so we were there's a number of reasons. It's a very remote site and it's hard to get to in the winter. And there's another, they're using it for a number of different things. But Rob was talking about trying to get another radio, not a Kiwi, but an RX888. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
That one's done. And, they were talking about that to get one of those and have that run Phil Karn's software on they were talking about using an AMD Ryzen as the engine to drive the thing. And I was trying to quiz Rob on what he thought everything you would need to have on that. And I was adding it up, and, it was getting up to about $750 for all the processors and hard drives and, you name it. But I'm going to go ahead and try to install this RX888 about 4 miles to the east of WWV. This is a friend of mine's got a farm there. And I'm also going to take and move the DRF and the FL Digi up to the same spot and see if we can run it from there and see how it does. It is a farm. The only major concern I have is there are a couple of hours a day grow lights up and running for this farm. And it's he has a perennial plant business. And so we'll see. I'm going to get the antennas far away from those lights, but we'll see what happens to the reception and such. But that way we would, be able to have
still line of sight to WWV.
There is a tiny little hill. I mean, we're talking tiny. I can see the top of the 2.5 megahertz antenna, but I can't see the other antennas. There's some slight topography. So I don't think you really get knife edging on HF. So I don't think we have to worry too much about that. And I think, 4 miles is pretty darn close. And we'll see what we get.
Yeah, I'm running a system that you described that Rob designed using the Ryzen and the RX 888. he worked with me last week on getting one of those running, so it does work.
Okay, well, he sent it off to me and I'm supposed to receive it tomorrow. Weather here is going to get pretty cold, so I don't think I'm going to be going out there. It's, it's an interesting spot, but I've got very good internet connection there, and I've got a nice warm room to keep the equipment in. And it's actually in a barn, but it's in an office in a barn for this greenhouse business. So I think it'll be a really good site. Other than I'm a little concerned about the grow lights. They're not on all the time, just a few hours a day, but that might be a game, ender right there. We'll see.
Are they fluorescent lights?
One is 1,000-watt fluorescent light. Yeah. So we'll see what I don't, I can move the antennas pretty far away. I can get them, 150 feet away from the building, but we'll see if there's an issue at all.
What you can do is just take a little shortwave radio and tune it to 10 and put the antenna up and see what you hear. See if you hear any interference.
Well, we're going to put the RX888 out there so that we're receiving everything from, across the whole spectrum. So that'll be the real test.
Hopefully you don't overload the front end on it.
Well, only on a few frequencies really should that happen, right? And then the rest of it should be okay. So,
well, if you're slamming the whole front end real hard on one frequency, it will affect the other ones. I mean, if you're saturating things.
Of path loss.
Well, I don't want to attenuate the radio, or else you won't pick up anything else. So
what you do is just use a shorter piece of wire for the antenna.
Well, that means it doesn't pick up other frequencies as well either, right? It's a shorter wire.
What you want. If this is the reference node for WWV, you don't want anything else. But if it's for everything else, then it's a different story. What is?
So I think it's going to be both. I think we're going to be. I'm going to set up what I have just for our references for 10 megahertz, and so yeah, we'll listen to that and make sure that works. But as far as having the RX888 there in place of the Kiwi, the whole idea is having a Kiwi, so you got the full broadband of the whole thing. So we'll see. I've never run Phil Karn's software, so I might have some questions, Bill, if you have experience with it.
Yeah, it's god awful complicated, but I think with Rob's help, we've got figured out what all the settings need to be. But I thought he was shipping you a completed system that was already configured. Is that not true, Dave?
He is, but like any computer, I'm expecting there to be issues, so we need to, work with it a little bit.
Okay, well, he's your best resource, but he's not available. If he's not available, contact me and I'll do my best to help you out.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Bill.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything that they like to talk about?
There is one little update on the Grape 1 DRF system.
Wonderful.
Let me share my screen here. I'll show you something interesting that I discovered last week a couple of weeks ago with help from our good friend Tom McDermott. All right. Here's a typical display from my system. There's the same chart that everybody who's running DRF has seen. It's the standard thing, comes on the website. I spoke with Tom McDermott and we got on, I don't know how we got on the subject, but we got talking about the GNU radio settings. And he says, one thing I ought to try is tightening down the filter. There's a low pass filter in front of the GUI waterfall. I think it originally was set to a cutoff frequency of 50 hertz and a transition. I don't remember what the original transition width was. Anyway, so he gave me some new settings. And after the new settings, this is what, come on. Now this is what it looks like. Well, you plot them both together. I see I'm getting a little bit more noise in the original design. So the new setting, which is shown on top, see how much less noise there is there. So that's
what was the setting changed to?
Well, the low pass filter, the cutoff frequency wants to be 10. I think we had it set to 50.
Yeah.
Transition width is,
So you just changed it to 10.
change the cutoff frequency to 10 and the transition width to 0.5. So anyway, we may want to work with our data collectors for the next eclipse if we're going to still run this system for that. If we're going to transition everybody to the new receiver, then it doesn't matter. I just thought I would throw this in so that everybody is aware we can improve the data we're collecting if we want to continue to use the Grape 1 DRF system. So that's all I had.
Thanks, Bill. That looks great. Okay. Does anyone have anything that they want to add or anything that they want to talk about?
All set.
Okay.
Think I'm good.
Yes. I will go ahead and add that my schedule will probably shift a little bit in the next week. So depending on what my coursework ends up being, I might have a class at 10. I'm trying to not make that happen. But I'd like to have a class outside the department. And at the moment, the front runner is physics optics, which happens at 10. So I will try
So it's
to
going to
work.
overshadow your schedule, right?
Yeah, just a little.
Bad pun.
Okay. I'll go ahead